Just hearing the name Donald Trump is enough to set the world on fire. For some, he's a fearless truth-teller, a businessman who refused to play by the usual rules. For others, he's one of the most divisive figures in modern history. But no matter what side of the debate you're on, there's one thing nobody can deny. Trump has lived a life packed with the kinds of twists, tragedies, and surprises that sound more like a movie script than real life. Behind the skyscrapers that bear his name, behind the gold-plated lifestyle, and behind the headlines that never seem to stop, there are hidden details that explain how Donald Trump became not only the 45th President of the United States, but also one of the most recognizable personalities on the planet. So, buckle up, because today we are revealing 10 shocking facts about Donald Trump that will completely change how you see him. Brooke 10. A personal vow. No alcohol, no cigarettes, no drugs. Picture this. A man who built his empire on glitzy hotels, luxury golf courses, and even casinos. Yet he personally refuses to touch a drop of alcohol. That man is Donald Trump. Unlike many businessmen who are often photographed with a glass of champagne or whiskey in hand, Trump has stuck to a lifelong vow of abstinence. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, and he avoids drugs altogether. The reason is rooted in tragedy. His older brother, Fred Trump Jr., had a promising career as an airline pilot, but his life was destroyed by alcoholism. Fred died in 1981 at just 43 years old, and his death left a permanent scar on the family. For Donald, it became a powerful warning. He has often repeated that he never wanted to go down the same path, and that he has spent his entire life avoiding the substances that consumed his brother. This choice has shaped Trump's image in a subtle but important way. In the world of business and politics, where handshakes are sealed with drinks and networking often happens over cocktails, Trump's Diet Coke has become as symbolic as anyone else, champagne flute. Even during presidential dinners or international summits, when protocol almost demands a toast, Trump has been seen lifting a glass filled with soda instead of alcohol. And while critics might laugh at his endless cans of Diet Coke, supporters point out that this discipline gave him an advantage. No hangovers, no late-night slip-ups, and always a clear head before walking into a meeting. It's a paradox that defines Trump well. He may thrive on controversy, chaos, and confrontation in public, but in private there's a strict personal rulebook that he refuses to break. The loudest man in the room might actually be the most disciplined one when it comes to his personal habits. It also explains why Trump frequently warns young people to avoid alcohol and drugs. For him, this isn't a moral preaching point, it's a lived experience, a lesson carved into his life by family tragedy. Behind the billionaire bravado and the political firestorms is a simple truth. One vow, made in the shadow of a brother's death, has quietly shaped Donald Trump's entire lifestyle. Number 9. A pop culture icon. Long before the presidency. Before he was President Trump, he was already Celebrity Trump. Long before entering politics, Donald Trump had mastered the art of appearing everywhere, on magazine covers and late-night talk shows, and yes, even on the silver screen. One of his most famous cameos came in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. In a scene shot inside the luxurious Plaza Hotel, which Trump owned at the time, a young Kevin McAllister asks a man for directions. That man? Donald Trump himself, pointing the way down the hallway. The cameo lasts only seconds, but it has become one of the most replayed clips every Christmas season. It's almost impossible to watch the film now without waiting for Trump to pop up. But that wasn't his only screen appearance. Trump also showed up in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air alongside Will Smith, where he played who else himself. He appeared in Sex and the City, in commercials, and in music videos. Each time the role was short, but the impact was undeniable. He wasn't just a businessman anymore, he was becoming a pop culture symbol. What's fascinating is how these cameos built the foundation for his later political success. Psychologists call it the mere exposure effect. The more people see a face, even in unrelated contexts, the more familiar and trustworthy it feels. By the time Donald Trump ran for president, millions of Americans already felt like they knew him, not from policy speeches or political rallies, but from sitcoms, movies, and reality TV. And of course, nothing cemented his media empire more than The Apprentice. The reality show turned "You're fired" into a global catchphrase and turned Trump into a brand that transcended real estate. Whether you admired his tough-love boardroom style or thought it was all theatrics, the show made him into one of the most famous faces in the world. Think about it. How many politicians can say they were household names before they ever ran for office? Trump wasn't a stranger knocking on America's door. He was already in the living room on the TV screen, entertaining people for decades. That's why his leap from celebrity to president, as shocking as it seemed at the time, was actually built on years of media familiarity. Put these two facts together, his strict discipline in private life and his relentless presence in public life, and you begin to see the contradiction that makes Trump so fascinating. He's a man who avoids the very vices that destroy many wealthy men, yet he thrives in industries built around excess. He's a man who refuses to blend into political norms, yet mastered the art of blending into pop culture. And that paradox is exactly why Donald Trump remains one of the most unforgettable figures of our time. Rutger 8. From Hollywood glamour to Hollywood shame. Trump won a Razzie Award. When most people think of Donald Trump and Hollywood, they think of his cameos or his red carpet appearances. But here's something that might shock you. Trump actually won a Hollywood award, and not the kind you proudly display on a shelf. In 1991, Trump received the Golden Raspberry Award, better known as the Razzie, for Worst Supporting Actor. The infamous performance came from the movie Ghosts Can't Do It, a romantic fantasy film where Trump played himself. The role was small, but the critics were merciless. He beat out seasoned actors for the dubious honor of being the worst. And while many celebrities would be embarrassed by such recognition, Trump, in classic Trump fashion, seemed unfazed. He even boasted about the cameo years later, pointing out that being in a movie, good or bad, still meant publicity. Think about that for a second. While other businessmen stayed tucked away in boardrooms, Trump was on movie sets, chasing the spotlight. Even when the spotlight mocked him, he still considered it a win. This is the essence of Trump as philosophy. There's no such thing as bad publicity. The Razzie didn't hurt his brand. It only made him even more talked about. It's the kind of counterintuitive thinking that defined much of his public life. And in a strange twist of fate, the same strategy of embracing controversy would later fuel his rise in politics. So, yes, Donald Trump holds a place in the bizarre Hall of Fame of Razzie winners, right alongside Hollywood actors who gave truly disastrous performances. For any other mogul, this might have been a humiliating footnote. For Trump, it became just another headline in the endless story of his larger-than-life persona. Figure 7. The oldest man ever elected president, until he wasn't, Donald Trump, made history in two ways when he won the presidential election in 2016. Not only did he pull off one of the biggest political upsets in American history, but he also became the oldest person ever elected president of the United States at that time. At 70 years old on Inauguration Day in January 2017, Trump broke the record that had stood for decades. For critics, this raised questions. Could someone of that age handle the stress of the most demanding job in the world? For supporters, it proved that Trump was full of energy, stamina, and determination, despite being well past retirement age. Anyone who watched him campaign remembers the endless rallies, sometimes multiple in a single day, where Trump would spend hours on stage, seemingly tireless, while younger opponents struggled to keep up. Trump himself leaned into this image. He often bragged about his stamina, joking that he had more energy than people half his age. It became part of his political brand. The idea that he was tough, relentless, and built to last. The fact that he could command stadiums full of people night after night added fuel to the narrative that he wasn't just defying political norms. he was also defying time itself. Of course, this record didn't last long. In 2020, Joe Biden was elected president at 78 years old, surpassing Trump as the oldest president in U.S. history. But here's the twist. Rather than making Trump seem outdated, the comparison actually highlighted his unusual vigor. Side by side, Trump presented himself as the man who, despite being 70, could keep moving like someone decades younger. In a way, this fact is a mirror of Trump's entire life story. He's always been the man to push limits, to break records, and to turn what others see as a weakness into part of his brand. Whether it was staying sober in industries drowning in alcohol, shrugging off a Razzie Award, or turning age into a badge of toughness, Trump consistently flips the narrative in his favor. Together, 8 and 7 tell us something crucial about Donald Trump. He has always understood the power of perception. A humiliating award? Turn it into proof that you're still in the headlines. An age that should slow you down? Turn it into proof of unmatched stamina. With Trump, reality isn't just about facts. It's about how those facts are spun, framed, and turned into a story that keeps the world watching. Number 6. Twitter as a political weapon. For most politicians, Twitter is just another platform to share press releases or polished campaign slogans. For Donald Trump, it became something far more powerful, a digital megaphone that redefined how a world leader communicates. Before his account was permanently suspended in 2021, Trump had over 88 million followers. Every morning, every late night, every sudden thought could instantly reach tens of millions of people, unfiltered. What made Trump's Twitter unique wasn't just the audience size, but the way he used it. He didn't sound like a politician. He sounded like himself, direct, emotional, sometimes funny, often insulting, always unpredictable. Whether it was calling opponents by mocking nicknames, announcing major policy decisions, or igniting international controversy in under 280 characters, Trump's tweets dominated headlines day after day. Critics called it reckless. Supporters called it refreshing. But either way, it worked. Trump bypassed traditional media, no gatekeepers, no filters, and spoke directly to the people. It made his supporters feel like they had a front-row seat to the presidency, while journalists scrambled every morning to respond to whatever bombshell tweet had just landed. It's no exaggeration to say that Trump's Twitter presence reshaped modern politics. Other politicians had accounts, but none used it like a weapon, a stage, and a reality show all at once. His tweets could crash stock markets, shift alliances, and change the news cycle instantly. And though his account may now be silenced, the mark he left on digital politics is permanent. Future leaders will always be measured against the standard Trump set with just his thumbs and a smartphone. Number 5. The casino king who went bust. Donald Trump has always branded himself as a winner, but one of the most fascinating parts of his story is how many times he had to climb back from failure. Nowhere is this clearer than in his casino empire. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Trump poured his fortune into Atlantic City, New Jersey. At his peak, he owned 3 massive casinos, including the glittering Trump Taj Mahal, which he called the 8th wonder of the world. The Taj Mahal opened in 1990 with fireworks, celebrities, and Trump promising it would be the crown jewel of his empire. But behind the glitz was a mountain of debt. Within just a year, the casino declared bankruptcy, and it wouldn't be the last. Over the years, Trump's casino businesses went bankrupt a total of 6 times. Each collapse made headlines, and critics used it as proof that he wasn't the business genius he claimed to be. But here's the twist. Trump himself never filed for personal bankruptcy. He always managed to protect his brand and shift the financial losses onto the companies. In other words, while the casinos crumbled, Trump walked away still wearing the image of a billionaire. To his detractors, this was exploitation. To his supporters, it was smart business. Proof that Trump knew how to play the game and come out on top, even when everything around him failed. This paradox, the businessman associated with bankruptcy yet never personally ruined, became a part of his larger-than-life mythology. It's also why the Trump brand is so complex. On one hand, the casinos represent failure, broken promises, and lost jobs. On the other hand, they show Trump's uncanny ability to turn disaster into survival. And in the world of politics, that same survival instinct would prove crucial. Put these two facts together, Twitter and the casinos, and you get a clearer picture of Trump's playbook. He thrives on risk, he embraces controversy, and when things collapse, he finds a way to spin the story in his favor. The casinos may have gone bankrupt, but Trump himself didn't. Twitter may have been chaotic, but it gave him more political power than any polished speech ever could. In short, Donald Trump doesn't just play the game. He rewrites the rules to make sure everyone is still talking about him, win or lose. 4. A star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Long before he became president, Donald Trump earned one of Hollywood's highest honors, his very own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In January 2007, the star was unveiled to recognize his contributions to television, specifically for creating and hosting the hit reality show The Apprentice. At the time, the show was at its peak, and "You're fired" had already become a catchphrase heard in households across America and around the world. For Trump, the star was more than just a piece of pink terrazzo on a sidewalk. It was validation that he had successfully crossed over from being just a real estate mogul to a bona fide entertainment figure. Standing on Hollywood Boulevard, side by side with actors, musicians, and cultural icons, Trump had cemented his place not only in business, but in pop culture history. Of course, the story didn't end there. Over the years, the star became a magnet for controversy, much like Trump himself. It was vandalized multiple times, defaced, even smashed with a pickaxe. Each time, the city repaired it, but the cycle repeated again. In a way, the star became a physical symbol of Trump's a divisive presence in American life, admired by some, despised by others, but never ignored. Today, when tourists walk down Hollywood Boulevard and see Trump's star, they are not just looking at a piece of Hollywood trivia, they re-looking at a piece of the Donald Trump saga, a reminder that his story has always been about more than politics. It's about branding, spectacle, and the pursuit of fame on every stage available. 3. The bankruptcy paradox. 6 business failures, still a billionaire. Donald Trump is often described as a master of branding, and nowhere is that more evident than in how he handled failure. Over the course of his career, his companies declared bankruptcy 6 different times, a number that would destroy most business moguls, and yet Trump himself remained standing, his personal wealth and reputation largely intact. The bankruptcies were mostly tied to his casino and hotel ventures in Atlantic City and elsewhere. The debts piled high, and when the businesses couldn't sustain themselves, they collapsed. Thousands of employees and investors lost money. But Trump had insulated himself legally and financially. The losses belonged to the corporations, not to Donald J. Trump personally. Critics seized on this, calling him reckless, irresponsible, and a fraud for marketing himself as a genius businessman while presiding over repeated failures. Supporters, on the other hand, argued that this showed his brilliance. He knew how to take risks, shift liability, and survive what would have bankrupted others. To them, Trump wasn't just a businessman. He was a survivor who proved he could outlast disaster after disaster. And here's where the paradox becomes clear. If you look only at the numbers, the failures are obvious. Casinos shuttered, hotels sold off, debts unpaid. But if you look at the bigger picture, Trump's brand only seemed to grow. Each bankruptcy was spun into a narrative of resilience. Each collapse became another chapter in the story of a man who refused to stay down. In politics, that narrative became incredibly powerful. Trump UE supporters didn't see the bankruptcies as proof of weakness. They saw them as proof of toughness. If he can survive all that, they reasoned, he can survive Washington. And in many ways, they were right. Trump had built his public image not by avoiding failure, but by taking failure, reframing it, and using it as fuel for his next act. Together, 4 and 3 reveal one of the central truths about Donald Trump. He is a master of symbols and survival. The Hollywood star shows how he deliberately positioned himself as a cultural icon, while the bankruptcies show how he turned disasters into stories of resilience. It's this combination, spectacle on the outside, survival instinct on the inside, that explains how Trump has managed to stay in the spotlight for decades. 2. A global golf empire. Donald Trump isn't just a businessman with hotels and towers, he's also a golf mogul. His love for the sport runs deep, and over the years he has built one of the largest private golf empires in the world. From the rolling green hills of Scotland to the deserts of Dubai, the Trump Organization owns and operates more than a dozen golf courses. 2 of the most famous are Trump Turnberry in Scotland and Trump National Doral in Florida. These properties host international tournaments and have been featured on professional tours, placing the Trump brand directly into the heart of one of the world's most prestigious sports. For Trump, golf isn't just recreation, it's strategy. Golf courses became places to network with billionaires, politicians, and celebrities, all under his brand's golden crest. They also reinforced his image of luxury. Fairways lined with grand clubhouses, membership fees that only the wealthy could afford, and every detail designed to scream status. But, as with many things Trump touches, the golf empire has also been controversial. Critics say the properties are vanity projects and financial burdens, while supporters argue they symbolize his ability to leave a lasting global footprint. Regardless, the golf courses remain a cornerstone of his identity, a playground where business, politics, and personal passion intersect. 1. The reality TV president. If there's one fact that explains Donald Trump's rise to the presidency, it's this. Before politics, he was already a reality TV star. With the launch of The Apprentice in 2004, Trump turned the business boardroom into primetime entertainment. Week after week, millions of viewers tuned in to watch him judge contestants, bark orders, and ultimately deliver the catchphrase that would define him: "You're fired." The show ran for 14 seasons and became a cultural phenomenon. It didn't just boost ratings, it transformed Trump into a household name for a new generation. For people who didn't know his real estate empire or casino ventures, they knew the man on TV who wore sharp suits, spoke with confidence, and carried an aura of ultimate authority. And here's the crucial part. The Apprentice gave Trump something more powerful than money or fame. It gave him relatability. Viewers felt like they knew him, like they'd seen him up close, like they understood how he thought. In politics, that connection is priceless. When he later launched his campaign for president, he wasn't starting from zero. He was building on more than a decade of being in people's living rooms every week. It's not an exaggeration to say that without The Apprentice, there might never have been a President Trump. The show polished his image, expanded his brand, and made him a character millions were already familiar with. It blurred the line between entertainment and leadership in a way no one had done before. And when Trump stepped onto the political stage, that blurred line became his biggest advantage. So there you have it, 10 shocking facts about Donald Trump that reveal the paradox of the man behind the headlines. He's the sober billionaire who built casinos. He's the businessman who went bankrupt but never broke. He's the TV star who became president. Every fact tells us the same thing. Love him or hate him, Donald Trump has always known how to stay in the spotlight. And that's why he's one of the most unforgettable figures of our time. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe to Top Tier 10 for more amazing countdowns every single week. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next big story. Who knows, your favorite celebrity, company, or mystery might be the subject of our next Top 10.